We're out at the slaughter pen farm today here in Fredericksburg. And we're on the trail to try to tell the story of John Pelham. Here pretty soon we're going to interview an author of a new book, Glorious Courage by Sarah K. Byerly. And it's a really good book, a really short read too. It kind of covers the life of Pelham leading up to his death in 1863. And the reason why we're here though at Slaughter Pen is because this is the location that Pelham pretty much does his greatest deed, if you will. He does his harshest work of death here on this field, raking the lines of the Union soldiers. So we're going to walk out there to where he sighted in his guns. All right. Today on our channel, we got James with Project Past. James, welcome to the channel.
Charlie, thanks for having me again. It's always good to be on. We got a thunderstorm rolling in here in Florida, typical summer afternoon. If you hear any rumbles, they're not Pelham's guns. It's just thunder, but we can pretend they are.
Yeah. No, if it was Pelham's guns, I'm going to go ahead in the other direction.
Yeah, so. He's he knows what he's doing, so I'm nowhere near that.
That's a fact. Yeah, so I kind of came up with this idea of rolling into talking about John Pelham, his small career, short career in his life, just to roll into this interview that I'm going to be doing with Sarah K. Byerly, because she wrote this book that if you read it end to end, it's like 4.5, 5 hours to read this book. But it's so condensed and to the point that when you read this book, you get every little nugget of information that you need in order to speak intelligently about John Pelham at the time. And there are some tidbits of things that are in there that are kind of, I guess it's an author taking liberty a little bit with guessing as to what the man meant by one thing or the other or how he felt. But it does add a life to the man himself. And Thomas, 10 of 10 hats. Yeah, I knew you'd like that. So, oh man. So, I this weekend I decided to head on up there to Fredericksburg and check out Pelham's Corner. And if you've never been to Pelham's Corner, it's this tiny little roadside exhibit that has one cannon, one sign, a stone monument, and it is in the middle of just havoc. There's a store across the street that's a drugstore. The parking lot you pull into used to be a drugstore, and now it's a rundown Dollar Tree. Mm-hmm. There are buildings just jam-packed everywhere all around you, and it's really hard to think that this used to be a Civil War battlefield and that John Pelham used to fight there. But thanks to the Central Virginia Battlefield Trust, they were able to save that tiny little plot of land and make it the representation for what John Pelham did there. So, tell me, what do you know about John Pelham yourself there, James?
Well, in all honesty, not a whole lot. I knew of, the term Pelham's Corner and his exploits at Fredericksburg, and and I've never been to that area, so that's part of the reason why I was really intrigued by this chat when you had me come on, because it's an opportunity to learn about this man. But just doing a little digging in preparation for the chat, he was capable from the get-go. Usually, people, improve as they're going through these experiences. It seemed like from the get-go, First Manassas, Pelham showed that he was very, very capable. Think about, he graduated West Point class of 1861, didn't even want to resign his commission in the Army right away. And then once Fort Sumter happened, he went ahead and did that very reluctantly. But at First Manassas, I believe he commanded a battery, and he personally shot down 3 United States flags. So, very capable. He's showcasing his skill, and, engaged with Ricketts and Griffin's battery on Matthews Hill. And just, from the get-go, he showed that, he was meant for this. He was meant to lead. And, think about his age at that time. What was he, 22 at the outbreak of the war, 23-ish?
Yeah, he's extremely young.
Yeah, and he's not only involved in it, he's leading. So that stuck out to me. and just learning about his exploits up until Fredericksburg. I mean, I believe his battery was engaged with the USS Marblehead as it was going up and down the river. I mean, it's one thing to shoot at a boat, but to be able to shoot at a boat and then maneuver your battery to
Yeah.
pursue that boat, that takes immense skill. Your crew has to be working in unison, and that takes a lot of training, and that just shows you the type of leader that Pelham was. So, the more I learn about him, he's very, very, he's a very captivating individual.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I like going through these things with some video help. So I have a couple of
Please.
clips that we'll go through, and we'll kind of talk about what we saw there, and then we'll discuss the man himself too along the way.
Yeah.
So go ahead and kick this one off here.
John Pelham's a young man from Alabama. He's 17 years old, and his father secures him an appointment to West Point. He gets there, and he signs himself away to a long-term contract to get that education because his father doesn't have it together. His father can't secure him an education otherwise, for some reason, even though he's a planter that's extremely wealthy at one point in time. While John's there, the country starts to unravel and come apart. He has to make a decision. Either he fights for his state and gets a commission through the Confederacy and leaves West Point early, or he fights with West Point and takes a chance at being arrested simply because he's from the South, being detained because now they're fearing that all of these cadets are leaving. What does he do? Well, he sneaks out on a train overnight and goes back to Alabama.
So there you have it.
Mhm.
This is the kind of choice that these guys are going through. He in the book that Sarah K. Byerly writes, she talks at length about the relationships that he has with the other cadets there, specifically Albert Ames, and these cadets have nothing foul to say about John Pelham at all. He's a
Mhm.
good guy. They always consider him a friend, and the entire time he's watching one cadet after another from the South leave and sever ties with West Point from the very beginning. But the thing that caught my attention in that book that I really didn't think about as much during that time that he's at West Point, hoping to be able to hang on
Mhm.
at least long enough to get his education out of the way, he's afraid that they're going to arrest him for being from the South.
Yeah.
He's afraid that West Point is going to detain him because West Point is afraid that he is going to leave. And that's not unheard of. There's certainly precedents for that. Anytime a military coup, if you will, starts to break out, they're going to detain the members, or at least the people that they suspect of it, and they're going to hold them and find out whether or not they're involved. But he's afraid. He's a young boy. He got there at the age of 17. He's been there for nearly 5 years. And the young man is now looking at the possibility of being jailed simply for being from the South. And he's already been in communication with people that he admires from the state of Alabama. And this person is putting this bug in his ear about getting commissioned with the Confederate Army. And now that drive that's in him to be successful is starting to be fulfilled with the idea, hey, I could head back to Alabama, not be
Mhm.
detained, and get a commission with the Confederate Army at the same time.
Mhm.
What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, it just goes to show you what a turbulent and complicated time that it was for these individuals. I mean, think about even the West Point classes before the war broke out. These men are serving together. Many of them served together in the Mexican War, and now all of a sudden they're on opposing sides of a battlefield, literally shooting at each other. It's just, you know, no doubt. I'm sure there's classmates in Pelham's class that he squared off against, either knowingly or unknowingly, but that's the situation that these men were in. And it's easy to say, oh, it's just Union versus Confederate and they fought for 4 years. But like these are individuals that have ties to both sides. Um, and like you were saying, he was fearful of his life, getting arrested at West Point, but yet he still turns down the first opportunity to go down to the Confederacy until after Fort Sumter. And then, he kind of sees the writing on the wall. It just shows you like a lot of these men were conflicted. It wasn't an easy decision.
Yeah. Yeah, and I kind of look at Pelham's situation with him being so young and being at West Point. Someone who's already been to West Point, who's already taken the oath and moved on to become an officer in the Army, they have that loyalty tie to the United States Army.
Yeah.
They understand where their loyalty should lie.
Mm-hmm.
And if you take a young student and put them through West Point, that doesn't necessarily give them the same type of mindset as a soldier who's been serving in the Army.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of have to look at it from that vantage point too. There's officers in the Army who have been serving with the United States that all of a sudden decide that they're going to sever ties and go back to their home state.
Yep.
And you can say it's for one reason or another, but really, when you break right down to it, you have to look at what the individual's, what his reason behind it was. At the end of the day, if you take an oath to the United States military, you have given your oath to that military and the Constitution to defend it. So at the end of the day, realistically, you're breaking that oath.
Absolutely.
There's no two ways around that, regardless of how things were back then, and regardless of what they felt their ties were, whether it was to the state or the place where their family was.
Mm-hmm.
They had an oath that they should have upheld to protect the Constitution of the United States. And there was a whole lot more going on that we just really didn't know about. So let's take it to that next little clip that we got coming up here, and we'll talk about the Union assault transitioning in to Fredericksburg at that slaughter pen.
Cool.
And coming from the direction that I'm walking right now, Franklin had Gibbon and Meade bring their men in this direction towards Prospect Hill, which is right in front of me. And they would be stretched out in facing this direction where I'm headed now, all along this line. The unfortunate part about the fight that happens out here is Franklin has more than enough men to attack that hill and probably succeed at his job at hand. But instead of attacking fully, he only sends in about 8,000 soldiers, and the gains that Meade has over here on this hill can't be followed up, and reinforcements do not come in time to help. So Meade has to withdraw, and the Confederates crush the line over here, securing the victory for the Confederates here at Fredericksburg.
Yeah, so here we are again. We're talking about all the failures of the Union Army at Fredericksburg. They failed to get their supplies there on time. The leadership. Now, I talked to a National Park Ranger over there at one point in time, and I had asked him about those failures. And in his opinion, his humble estimation, he did not see that leadership in the Union Army failed. And I simply asked him, how in the world could you even think that there was no failure in leadership? I mean, you have failure across the board from where the supplies and the boats are supposed to be there and they're not on time.
Mm-hmm.
You have bickering back and forth between upper echelon leadership. And they're not agreeing on how to fight. And then when they go into the fight, all they can do is continue to push forward and try to make this succeed. But then you have someone like Franklin, who's in control of, I think, 60,000 soldiers, and he puts in 8,000 soldiers to go up against half of the Confederate Army that's entrenched up in a wooded line on Prospect Hill.
Mm-hmm.
The failure was just absolutely crazy. But when you get to the slaughter pen and you get out to a certain point in the field, this beautiful place that the American Battlefield Trust has saved from development, it's like 300 or 400 acres of land. You can see all the way down clearly to where the line would have been for the soldiers approaching. In this spot is where Pelham is now aiming his guns. He's putting a visual point on that. The description in Sarah K. Byerly's book comes from his own writings, where he talks about how he felt at one point in time about the destruction at Manassas that he caused the men there. If you're an artillerist and you can sight in and see through your glasses the destruction, the men that you're killing, and then you go across that field, put yourself in the shoes. How would you feel about seeing that death all around you?
I mean, again, we touched on his age. I mean, this was, again, 22, 23 years old. Think about what you guys were doing then. Think about even if you were working in your career that you're doing now, think about your maturity level then as compared to now. And again, this man is not only in the fight, he's leading.
Yeah.
out ahead of his main force. I believe he had 2 guns, and I think he went down to 1 gun shortly after Charlie.
Yeah.
So again, he has essentially 1 cannon. There's an entire Union force in front of him. He's lobbing shells into their flank. He's obviously directing their fire. And again, this is a 22, 23-year-old kid, essentially causing havoc amongst the Union infantry, scores of casualties, delayed them like an hour or so, just this
Right.
1 gun. So you
Right.
can imagine the carnage that he's causing. And this is at a point in the war where he has experience. He's been in some combat now. He's been First Manassas, the Peninsula Campaign, Antietam, Second Manassas. Like, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
He knows what to sight in, and he knows the carnage he's causing. It's just, I couldn't imagine just being in that situation, even just being out in front of the line by yourself. It's one thing to be with the rest of your force, but to be exposed,
Yeah.
it's hard to fathom.
And before all of this, really, before the Civil War breaks out, he's a virtual nobody. So he
Mhm.
goes into the American Civil War, and he immediately impresses Jeb Stuart right off the bat. Jeb Stuart comes up with this fantastic idea, along with Pelham, to create this mobile unit of artillery that can move in any position around the field at a quick notice,
Mhm.
as quick as artillery can move. And Pelham starts to succeed almost immediately. And he gains the promotions that he needs in order to start to take over smaller batches and then larger groups of men and then larger groups of men. And before too long, when we get to Fredericksburg, he's probably at the height of his command and control when it comes to artillery. He comes up with the idea to go down there to that hill and to take on that flank because he sees an opportunity. Um, Standing on that field looking up towards Prospect Hill, you kind of get the overwhelming sense of doom. If
Okay.
you're a Union soldier standing there and you're
Mhm.
looking at what you have to attack, not only is it doom, but off about a mile away, there is a cannon that's firing so rapidly that people thought that there was an entire group of cannons over there firing. And they're coming down the line, enfilade, and it is ripping through the ranks, knocking legs and arms off and knocking heads off of soldiers and just laying waste to people left and right. The the way it makes a soldier feel when he starts to see something like that is just, it's uncomparable. Now, when we go along here with another video coming up here pretty soon, there is a soldier that actually sat down in the field and took the time to write what he was feeling as he was in the middle of that fight.
Mhm.
So here pretty soon we'll have that coming up. I'm going to roll into another clip. As a matter of fact, it might be that clip actually.
Okay.
From this position that John Pelham had sighted in, where he was making war and killing people out here, a Union soldier from Gibbon's men actually had the time and the wherewithal to write down something in his diary in the middle of battle. They have it on the sign out here, and I'll read that to you. It says, "The different noises of shot and shell and bullets are very peculiar. Boys talking and even joking together while the shells flew thickest. The crash and the roar of explosions in the woods is tremendous. Skirmishing becoming sharper. Bullets flying thicker. Hot work ahead. Must put away my book. In danger of being hit." He's writing this while he's in the middle of battle. Just imagine that. He's jotting down his thoughts. This is a crazy line out here. And what Pelham does out here is pretty amazing. We're going to talk more about him over on his corner.
Yeah, so the ability to sit there coolly writing down your thoughts in a field, I found that to be absolutely crazy.
Yeah, I mean, how could you even write
Yeah,
at that moment, But he did, and that's probably one of the more, not genuine, but one of the more just real, most accurate, because it's literally happening as he's writing. So, I mean,
yeah,
that quote sends kind of chills up your spine, because you can imagine those shells ripping through, you know, regiments near that man, and he's writing it down, essentially telling
yeah,
you what he's seeing.
yeah. Right at the moment in time, you know.
Hmm.
The best part about that quote is if you go out to that field and you go there right around December time frame when it's nice and cold and the trees are all dead looking, and then
Yeah.
you sit there and you read that and you kind of think about the lines of men going up towards Prospect Hill, you get the sense of kind of being there, even though you don't have all the noise around you.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, these guys were freezing out there. They were suffering. in more ways than just battle, you know. So it's pretty amazing.
Now, so I've never been to that area yet. So where you were reading that quote in relation, how far is Pelham's Corner from that, and like what's the terrain like in that area?
So in that area, and it's a good thing you asked that because I actually have a clip here where I can show you
Perfect.
what that terrain looks like.
Yeah.
But in that area, it's all farm field.
Okay.
And even from Pelham's Corner back in 1863 and 1862,
Mm-hmm.
that entire area was flattened out by farms. And you could see from one end to the other. And today, when you're in Pelham's Corner, you see a building right in front of you. You can't see past it. But
Yeah.
Pelham's
Okay.
Corner is about a mile and a little bit over a mile from that position where I was reading that. That field is flat terrain, and as you're standing and you're looking ahead, you see all of these trees and an actual train track that runs through the same area where the train would have been back in 1862.
Oh wow.
And the hill just gradually goes up, and it's not a very large looking hill in front of you, Prospect Hill,
Mm-hmm.
but you can see that slow incline as you're gradually going up the hill there and going towards that train track, and the entire area out there is just, it's clean, it's wide open. As a matter of fact, that sign talked about there being one tree in the middle of that field, and
Wow.
artillerists over on Prospect Hill was using that one tree as their gauge to hone in on those soldiers. So
Wow.
they were firing at that tree before those Union soldiers even got there. And the Union soldiers marching in line towards that tree knew that those artillery pieces were aiming at that spot.
And yet they
So,
still went forward.
yeah, they still had to go for it, you know?
It's yeah, it's hard to fathom because during the Civil War, any combat in the 19th, 18th, 17th century, line of sight is everything. It's
Mhm.
not like today where you can call in an artillery strike or an airstrike on a force over the mountain and you don't even
Right.
see them.
Yeah.
They have to see what they can hit, but seeing a guy is a mile away, mile and a half away, like that is still a very hard thing to accomplish and do it
Yeah.
so effectively. So again, it's just another testament to Pelham himself, and then how well drilled his crews were.
Oh, yeah. No, his crews were definitely top of the line for sure.
Hmm.
And going forward in the future, whenever he dies at Kelly's Ford,
Hmm.
all of these people are mourning the death of John Pelham, but I think the Army is mourning it more, not just because of the young man that died, but the opportunity. We're talking about one of the best artillerists that they have.
Hmm.
So young and so able to train people to do such deadly work. And if you read about battles happening after he's gone, they talk about artillery shooting over their targets.
Hmm.
Prior to that, artillery was hitting its mark.
Yeah.
So I hate to say it, but it sounds like sometimes one person can be the difference in how artillery or any unit works, really.
Yeah. Well, as Jeb Stuart's head of artillery, he was shaping that culture. So
Yeah,
they had a standard, and they had a set way of doing things, and then once he's lost, so is that experience and that standard.
yeah.
Unfortunately.
Let's take a look at the terrain out there where I was standing.
Wow.
Yeah, you can see that
Yeah,
how it's
it's just
wide open.
open views. Yeah.
Now today you go out there, it's a big cornfield, a lot of crops out there.
Hmm. Yeah. Definitely wintertime. You can see that you're probably going to get some great views of what
Yeah,
they
yeah. When
saw.
you go out there, all of that's pretty much mowed over during the wintertime.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's you take that and you look at that and it's beautiful out there
Hmm.
and just wide open. And there used to be an old house out there too. Last year they bulldozed that thing down and they completely cleared out that field. Um, but it's pretty neat to see now how wide open and beautiful it is. Let's see. I'm gonna play this next clip coming up here.
One of the most amazing tales about John Pelham that comes out of that book that Sarah K. Byerly wrote is his reservation about the death that he's creating. In his own words, you can kind of tell that the young man is almost sickened by the scenes of battle after the war. And he's kind of sickened by his excitement and his fun that he's having while he's causing all these deaths. It's the most exciting thing that he does as a soldier going into battle, and he loves the adrenaline. But after it's all over with, he questions the work that he does because he sees the results. He sees the arms and legs blown off and people who are decapitated on these fields. And that is the thing that he struggles with the most, but he becomes real good at what he does.
Yep. So this is work that he considers necessary for him in order to do his job, and he has to figure out how to get past it. She does a good job in that book highlighting the fact that this young man, who is just 21, 22 years old, at Manassas, he walks across this field and he writes this either diary entry or letter back home. I can't remember which one it is, but he writes this entry that talks about what he's seen on the field. And he doesn't feel good inside about feeling so excited and happy to be able to hit his targets, because his targets are humans just like him.
Yep.
You know? And the sickening feeling that he gets from that afterwards makes him question what he's doing. And it just, you can't get any better when it comes to learning about American Civil War and history, because we look at these people as if they were stone figures and they all should have made the perfect choice. But these are real people with real emotions here that are dealing with things on their own terms, and this kind of writing really highlights that.
Oh yeah, I mean, there were ordinary people that were just living during a very, like I said before, just a tough, turbulent time in our country, and just time after time, it just making hard decision. It seems like they just never stopped. And like you're touching on, Pelham sending those rounds down range, and in his mind, he's dishing it to the enemy, and for every enemy soldier you kill, that's maybe one less of your friends that dies. But when you have time to reflect after that, and you realize, like, that guy could have been my friend, if we weren't fighting each other right now. It's just that human element that kind of just reminds you that these are just ordinary people that were serving for a cause that they believed in on either side.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty tough stuff for them, that's for sure. And I mean, those battlefields were definitely rough, and something I would never want to be a part of. That's
No,
for certain.
no.
That's real bad stuff. And just imagine those soldiers shoulder to shoulder, lining up, marching across those fields. That's what I try to give that to people whenever I'm creating those videos and talking to folks. That visualization. The idea that these soldiers start out in this perfect line and they're marching, and then the entire time these officers that are behind them, they're dealing with this antiquated way of fighting. Are close up the line, close up the gap, move in, move together. So they're moving these lines further together. Another hole gets blown in it, and then they move back together again. And they continue to do this. Well, onslaught fire is coming down your rank just like this. When it starts to nail people all the way down the line and you have to close that giant gap back up, you're still moving in the direction of that fire coming down the line. It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, I mean, that linear warfare. Imagine, you're marching towards an objective, and the guy next to you either gets blown to pieces or he even gets hit by a small arms fire. Like, he's not next to you anymore, but you're still making the decision to march forward. Like it seems like they did it without hesitation. And it's just, I will never get over how brave, selfless, courageous. I mean, they were scared as well, but they kept moving forward.
Yeah, they kept moving forward. Now, I did read something recently when we talk about brave and courageous soldiers. This Francis Barlow book here.
Yep.
In the book, he writes a lot about the everyday things that he sees as an officer, and one of the inserts in there, he talks about fighting in Petersburg, and he talks about how he has soldiers that are lagging behind, that are standing with the bayonet at the ready. And as other soldiers who are supposed to march up and go forward and fight, a lot of them are starting to try to run in the other direction. And these soldiers' jobs are to take that bayonet and threaten those soldiers to get them back into line. And he talked about one skinny guy in there that looked mean enough that he deadly looked serious enough to to make do on his promises. So
Yeah, it's
so
one of
what?
those aspects of the battles that you don't hear about. For
Yeah,
every 10 guys that go forward, there's a couple that are trying to bolt to the rear,
yeah,
and I don't think any less of them.
no,
Especially
yeah,
sitting right here in air conditioning. But yeah, it's one of they're human.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Let's see if we can get over to Pelham's Corner now, and we'll take a
Yeah,
look
yeah.
at what we have.
It looks like a beautiful, serene place that I'm in right now. John Pelham's Corner. This is the small hill, the rise in the land where Pelham had his gun primarily placed during the action of the Battle of Fredericksburg, aimed off in that direction over there. At first he went down to the riverside, and then he came back up and he placed guns here. And he started taking aim in that direction at or giving enfilade fire to the Union soldiers that were coming across the field. Amazing thing about this position here is when you're walking around, it kind of looks like you're in the middle of nowhere when you're out here in these trees. But then you make your way a little bit further, and it becomes real clear to see that this piece of property is in the middle of an industrial complex. Pretty insane.
Wow.
Yeah, at one point in time, I'm out there trying to film, and I don't
All
know
the
why people
cars.
do it, but the cars are so loud.
Mhm.
I'm being washed out, and then some guy comes by and he starts blowing the horn, waving, and I'm like, "Come on, man!"
In the beginning of that video, when you were kind of in the brush,
Yeah,
I had no idea that you were at Pelham's Corner, and then you walked out and you showed how little of it is left. It's just, I'm glad there's something there, but it's. I wish we can get that full view of
yeah,
that portion of the battlefield.
yeah, yeah. No, it's and that whole area is kind of crazy because Fredericksburg, um, lots of that land was lost
Hmm.
to time, lost to development. But then you drive in the opposite direction towards Spotsylvania, or you drive towards the wilderness, and the wilderness is still the wilderness. It's in the middle of nowhere. There's trees everywhere. You can
Yeah.
go out there and get lost for days if you try. Well, sometimes even if you don't try, you can go out there and get lost for days.
Hmm.
But it's just a tale of two stories there, really. There's so many battlefields in the one area. Fredericksburg is the one place where most of it's lost. And even if you go to where Lee's headquarters was, where he was standing on top of the hill looking down towards Marie's Heights and all of
Yeah.
that, up at the top, you get there and you're like, oh, this is great. It's a wonderful view. I can see the entire town. But then you turn a full 180 and you look behind you and there's some guy's trailer and a pile of trash in his backyard because his house and his yard is right there next to the property. It's
Yeah.
pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's a shame because Fredericksburg is one of those. Obviously, it was a overwhelming Union defeat, but there were so many just huge moments in military history. We had the opposed river crossing,
Yeah.
Union soldiers jumping in the boats and crossing the river under fire. Then
Hmm.
you have the urban combat aspect, which, it happened in Corinth before, but, not to this scale. And, these soldiers weren't trained in urban combat. They're trained how to march, fire their musket a few times, and, listen to some bugle calls and things of that nature. So they're fighting through these cities, and, they already did the opposed river crossing. These are huge moments in American military history. And it's a shame that, that area, a lot of it has been lost.
Yeah, it really is. But at the same time, too, like the Fredericksburg area, the little city portion, they've
Mhm.
actually done a really good job at maintaining some of the older buildings that are out there.
Good, good.
If you go to the downtown area, a lot of the historic churches are still in place.
Oh, that's cool.
The riverfront, you can still go down to the riverfront and look across to the old mansion where Lee courted his wife at the
Oh, really?
mansion. And the
Yeah.
mansion's still there too.
So you're probably going to force me to come to Fredericksburg now because I've never been there. So you saying all these things, I'm like, all right, all right. I'm probably going to go down a rabbit hole after the chat and
Yeah.
probably have an airplane ticket purchased.
Yeah, no, it's 100% worth the visit because it's a good place to take the family. It's a good place to hang out and
Hmm.
and have a good meal. I like to go to
Yeah.
a burger joint over there called Eats. I recommend it. Good stuff.
Can't go wrong with a burger.
That's right, and that's like not even a block away from the stone wall.
Oh, wow.
You can walk from there to the stone wall and sit outside and have your burger.
That's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so I'm going to move on and see. We're going to talk about Pelham's Corner and the action that happened over there.
Sometimes we pass by corners like these and they kind of go unnoticed, especially if you're not a big history buff. This particular place here is called Pelham's Corner, and this is kind of an estimate of where they believe John Pelham and his cannon would have been. As you can tell by all the noise that's around me here and everything that's going on, it is a small little corner of land tucked away in the middle of a city. All this industrial stuff behind me, and it's kind of amazing. One drugstore is across the street, and there's one drugstore that used to be here that's now a Dollar Tree. So one unsuccessful business after another out here taking up the land where John Pelham did his finest work during the American Civil War.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
it really is, and you consider the time frame that the man was alive and the fight and everything that happened there. That was the time when Lee said what he said about him to make him the gallant Pelham.
Yeah.
And afterwards he ends up at Kelly's Ford. He ends up in March of 1863 in a fight out there that many people and noted historians have written about and said that Pelham was with the cavalry going into the fight, and it simply just wasn't true. Pelham had brought up his guns again, and he was with his guns, and he was on horseback. And while he was there, he actually gets hit by a fragment of probably a shell that exploded overhead, and it came in behind his neck and fractured his skull.
Mm.
And yeah, the next clip that we have, we'll talk about that too. But this is why it is so important that we continue the effort with American Battlefield Trust. All of us regular people pitching in some cash with them, or we go to the national park and we pitch in some time just to help clean up. The Civil War trail signs. I like to go out there to the Civil War trail signs and bring a bottle of Windex and a couple of towels with me, and I wipe those things down because this is about preserving the history so that future generations can learn about the actions and the things that happened in these places. And when people stop caring, this is what you get. You get a couple of drugstores across the street from each other in a corner of land that nearly cost the Civil War or the Central Virginia Battlefield Trust $8 million to purchase.
Wow.
It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah. It just the land, I know Franklin too. They have been dealing a lot with it, and they have been able to reclaim a lot of that battlefield. So it's kind of like, just buying 20, 30-yard parcels at a time. So, hopefully we can keep our fingers crossed, and I know the trust is pretty persistent, and maybe we can start reclaiming 50 yards at a time. Yeah. Every little bit helps. The little pieces of the puzzle.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see what last little bit we got here to talk about. Yep. Go into this last little clip, and then we'll kind of close it out for the day.
So as you can tell, it's a vast difference out here. There's not a lot of this land saved anymore. And it's a pretty sad situation for such a big story. And just a few months after John Pelham does what he does out here on this field, he then ends up in another location where there's a lot of confused stories behind his death. But one thing's universal. He was with his artillery. He did receive a wound that was either to the neck or to the head. And because of the treatment right after the wound and how poorly his body was treated, he ends up dying from it. And he probably could have been saved. His own men were responsible for his maltreatment heading back towards camp.
Yeah, so that's another surprising thing that came out of the book that Sarah K. Byerly wrote.
Interesting.
She talks about how the men had essentially slumped him over in a saddle and had figured him for dead. He had a wound to the head. They didn't think nothing of it. They were told to get him back as quickly as possible to try to get him help. They slowly made their way back. and it's assumed that the reason why they did that was because they didn't want to get back into the fight. So they've got Pelham slumped over in a saddle. All this blood is rushing into his head, and he's now got this internal brain bleed that's causing swelling
Mm-hmm.
that is pretty much shut him down. His lights are out. He's still breathing. When they get him to the house, the officer that was there was extremely upset with the soldiers that brought him there in that condition. Find out that he's still breathing, and they try to work on him to keep him alive, but it just doesn't work out. And it's
Yeah.
one of those situations that probably could have been prevented had those soldiers taken the orders as serious as they should have and tried to get him help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's again, I believe by Kelly's Ford was 1863. So what is he, 24?
Yep, 24 years old.
Maybe turning 24, and he's mortally wounded there. It's just, you think of other guys like Alonzo Cushing at the angle. He was 22, 23, leading a battery.
Yeah,
Same battle, Latimer,
yeah,
Joseph Latimer on Benner's Hill. He was 19. He would be mortally wounded. It's just, these men just stepped up, were doing things that no 18 to 24-year-old should be doing, and they did it to the best that anyone could ever do it. And then, they paid the ultimate price. It's just like you touched on, the reason why we got to preserve this land, and the reason why we got to, share these stories on outlets like this.
yeah. Yeah, these wars, a lot of these wars are cooked up by old men and they're suffered by young men. So,
Yep.
So if you get with the American Battlefield Trust and you put in a small donation with them, they'd like to send you this nice book that's got all of these maps in it, which I use all the time.
Yep.
This map here goes over the location that we were talking about when it comes to Pelham's Corner and that field of fire. Right here on this corner, that's it. That's Pelham's Corner and the street that runs through it.
Wow.
And he's firing in this direction here. That entire map, the majority of it is industrial complex. You can see the highlighted portions here of saved lands, preserved lands, which is why I like these maps too. And it tells you who preserved this stuff. You have Fredericksburg National Military Park, and it says preserved by Central Virginia Battlefield Trust, and then preserved by the American Battlefield Trust. So there's that blue portion. American Battlefield Trust preserved all of that land. And of course, that's all done by donations, small donations even, by folks just like us, caring and wanting to pitch in a little bit and try to help out. Also, Anne mentioned not too long ago in one of our chats about April of every year when we have the events where there's volunteering going on around the areas through American Battlefield Trust, and you can get on their website and find out a location where they're going to be, and you can go help American Battlefield Trust. By one time, I went out and cleaned off headstones of United States soldiers that had died at the Battle of Cold Harbor. So that was kind of cool,
Mm-hmm.
So I hope everybody learned a little something here. I love having these chats. James, I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me again. This, like I said, this was a topic, I knew of Pelham, but to learn about some more of his exploits and seeing where they took place, because I've never been in that area. I'm happy you did this, and thanks for having me on. Everyone in the chat, thanks for coming out and chatting it up, and hopefully, we can run into each other on the battlefield someday.
Yeah, for sure. Before we get kicked off of here, what do you got going on? What kind of videos are coming up on your channel?
So right now I'm currently doing some Shiloh stuff. I believe I'm in episode 5 or 6 of a 11 part series. I filmed it back in April of this year. So we're just about halfway through. Just got to get the time to edit and finish it.
Yeah.
So hopefully episode 6 should come out next Sunday. And then after that, I believe I still have a couple Gettysburg stuff from a trip last year. There's a handful of things I just haven't gotten to, and I'll probably have to go somewhere for more content.
That's it. Gotta keep it going.
Yeah, I'm trying. Same to you,
sir.
man. Just get out there and keep churning them out. I see a new video every couple of days from you. It's always good to see.
Yeah, I try to stay busy,
Yeah, absolutely. the
keep
more
these fine history people here entertained. So
the more videos that are out there, the more opportunities people have to, maybe that one of your videos or any video on YouTube sparks their interest and they go down their own rabbit holes. And before we know it, we got another history lover. So
yeah, for sure, for sure. I want to put a plug in, by the way, because there's something that I've seen recently that really impressed me. JD from History Underground, he's
mhm.
got this excellent series coming from Japan, talking about World War II and the perspective of the people in World War II.
It's been pretty neat to see
Yeah,
that.
yeah, and I mean, he always puts out good stuff anyway. But
Mhm.
to see him branch off and get into that section of it and talk about that experience that they had over there in Japan,
Yeah.
that's something else. You don't see a whole lot of that. So
Very
uh,
unique and a really cool just to see where those things happen. It's such a huge moment in human history, not just American history, but just a huge moment.
yeah, for sure. Well, James, like I said, I appreciate you coming on, and hopefully we can get together and maybe do a Fredericksburg video or two.
I love that, man. Like I said, the more we keep talking about it, I'm like, oh, try not to go down a rabbit hole. I gotta finish Shiloh.
That's right. That's right. Well, take care, and everybody, thanks a lot for coming on here and watching what we got going on, and hopefully we'll see you around out there.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, James.
Now, I couldn't think of a better place to end this video than right here in the middle of the woods, the Battle of the Wilderness, at the hotly contested Brocken Plank Road, Orange Plank Road. Not too far in that direction, Longstreet's wounded. Right here where I'm at right now is a place where men like Wadsworth and Hayes end up losing their lives. Families lose loved ones. Soldiers burned to death in these fields around me here. If you'll let these fields do it, they'll touch your soul.